We're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Anderson. I'm the managing editor of NextBillion.net, and we're glad that you all could join us. I'm here joined today by William Warshauer. He's the new president and CEO of TechnoServe. NextBillion readers will be well acquainted with what TechnoServe does in the business for development space, and so we're really glad to have him. Will brings a really interesting perspective to TechnoServe. He's coming from live. Hello, everyone. My name is. Sorry, I've got my other window open. This is live broadcast, so. And we're glad that you all could join us. Sorry, that was me previously talking, and so we are live. It's officially live. Sorry about that, Will. I thought I'd just jump into questions here, and for those of our readers who aren't familiar with what TechnoServe does, Will, can you help provide an overview of the organization?
Absolutely, Scott. Pleasure to be with you today. TechnoServe is a 47-year-old nonprofit organization working in 30 countries around the world and focused on providing business solutions to poverty. And so we do that by linking people to information, to capital, and to markets, and work with enterprising people around the developing world, helping them build competitive farms and businesses and industries. It's an organization that since its founding has been deeply rooted in the belief that hardworking people in developing countries really just need some opportunities, if given the opportunities, that even those people who live in the poorest places in the world can generate income for their families and for their communities. I think we're different than a lot of nonprofits in our strong and deep commitment to business solutions. Most of our staff come to us from the business world. We've got a lot of ex-McKinsey consultants, people who are working in agribusiness and financial services, who are, I think, really delighted with the opportunity to take these hard business skills and apply them to eradicating poverty around the world.
And tell me a little bit about, you've been with TechnoServe now for just a little over 6 weeks, and you've had a chance to do a lot of visitation of TechnoServe operations in 4 countries principally, I understand: Ghana, Mozambique, Guatemala, and Haiti. What surprised you about what you've seen at some of the work sites and seen in terms of the work firsthand?
Yeah, that's right, Scott. I'm just in week number 7 as the CEO of TechnoServe, and so it's been terrific to get to be out in the field and see some of the work firsthand, and to see it with fresh eyes. In terms of things that surprised me, one very pleasant surprise has been the aspiration of TechnoServe staff around the world to work for really transformational change at a national or even a greater level. And so our teams are typically working up and down the value chains with smallholder farmers or small business people, with intermediary organizations, and often with multinational organizations as well, trying to set up arrangements where all of those participating in that value chain can profit. And I was in Mozambique and saw work that TechnoServe is actually no longer doing, but helped to start back in 2006 in the poultry industry. And it used to be that if you wanted to eat chicken in Mozambique, you were eating imported frozen chicken from South Africa, and people wondered why that had to be. I visited a poultry farmer at a business called New Horizons, one of the early people that started that there, and they have an outgrower model where they work with a number of small farmers who actually raise the chickens. And this is a model that has caught on like wildfire around the country. And as I said, TechnoServe several years ago exited that work, but the growth of that sector has gone on to where back in 2006, poultry was, by our estimate, less than 1% of national GDP and is now more than 4%. There's more than 2 million farm families being touched by this, and the farm families on average gaining $700 a year in additional income through their poultry activities. So it was a great example and quite pleasantly surprising to me of both the enduring nature of the work that is continuing to go on and grow after TechnoServe stopped being engaged, and in the really large scale of it. I was, as you mentioned, also in Haiti, and there saw a fascinating program called Haiti Hope, which started shortly after the earthquake that Coca-Cola has been key in supporting, and it worked with mango farmers in Haiti. These people, at the beginning of the program, really had some mango trees in their backyard, effectively. And part of the program has been to work with them to help them think about their trees as a business, to use improved practices to improve the quality and quantity of their mangoes, to plant new trees. And happily, Whole Foods has come into the picture and is buying all of these mangoes. Exports of those mangoes out of Haiti has tripled over the last 3 years as that project has gone on. And so it's another interesting example of people in one of the poorest places in the world getting linked up by way of a couple of large companies into an arrangement where they are able to earn a lot more money on the same land for their families. The last fun thing I did in my travels was spend a day listening to entrepreneurs in Ghana pitching ideas to scale up their businesses there. TechnoServe works with entrepreneurs all over the world in helping them scale up their small businesses, and it was fascinating to be in Accra and to listen to the diverse range of people who were proposing expanded financial services to the poor. They were producing cosmetic products. They were going to harvest a tree and produce an oil that was going to be the best in the world, and all sorts of other very creative ideas. And our team is going to help them connect with finance, help them refine their business ideas, and help them scale up to generate additional economic activity. So just a sort of a smattering. I could go on, but it's been a wonderful time to go around and see TechnoServe's work in the field.
Yeah, I mean, you sum up 3 different areas, as I understand it, in terms of where TechnoServe's interaction happens with the smaller entrepreneur and the larger players. I am getting a little bit of feedback on my audio, so I'll try to keep my comments brief. But I did want to go over your background. You've obviously spent a career in development. You were previously with PACT, which, for those who don't know, is a $180 million development organization operating in 25 countries. You're also the Vice President at Population Services International, PSI, and where you managed the Global Strategic Plan and a $90 million portfolio of health program. And you also were the country director of Pakistan. I'm just curious about how all of these experiences kind of informed your view on global development today and over time, and as well as business solutions to poverty.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you hit it right there at the end. One of the constants in my career, and I've been really fortunate to get to do a lot of interesting work for really good organizations, one of the constants has been this idea of business solutions. And I have seen over the years in various contexts and places the incredible energy and dynamism and resources that the private sector brings to bear in even the world's poorest places. And so work which leverages those and provides the right incentives to players so that that energy and dynamism can be a force for development it has really been, I think, the hallmark of my career. You mentioned PSI, which is a big global health organization. There, I worked on marketing and selling essential health products and services, always through the private sector. At PACT, one of the things I spent a lot of time on was financial inclusion, serving as president of a big microfinance institution there. And so, again, I got to see firsthand the difference that a small capital injection can make to a poor family, or the ability to save money in a safe way or be insured against calamity, how game-changing that can be for poor people. I started my career as a Peace Corps volunteer, which I think is invaluable in connecting you to the realities of the daily lives of poor people. And then I've been fortunate to be able to run programs in country, and do a variety of other jobs, including, as you mentioned, think about strategy. And also, my hope is that my time spent in the field as a volunteer and running programs helps sort of inform me as a leader of an organization. I think a couple of things I've noted that I think will serve me here in TechnoServe is looking at how the financing of international development activities has changed over the years. As your viewers are no doubt aware, in emerging markets, there's give or take about $6 of direct foreign investment now for every dollar going in of aid flows. And so the smart aid agencies, certainly AID among the leaders in this, are thinking about their own investments and how their investments can leverage that direct foreign investment. And I think we are certainly, we've been early in that space, but we're certainly no different in thinking about that. Part of my background you didn't mention was I did spend 2 years working for a software company, a very innovative company called Voxiva, and that work focused on systems in developing countries linked to mobile phones. And I think one of the other big trends and things that TechnoServe is active in, that I will continue to be active in here, is the use of technology. It's an absolute game changer, as we all know, for so many poor people. And so that's some of the perspectives I think I bring to the organization from the other places I've been.
I'm curious about what your Peace Corps assignment on geography.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Scott?
What was your Peace Corps assignment, and where were you based?
I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa, in Sierra Leone, and I was an ag volunteer. So I worked with smallholder farmers in a remote part of Sierra Leone up in the north on growing rice and also on oil palm. And so, as I said, absolutely invaluable, and I still draw on those experiences to this day in terms of the day-to-day realities of poor families and those people who are still going through a hungry season, a part of the year before the harvest where they may not have enough to eat, those families who are having to decide, do I use money to buy food for the family or keep my kids in school? Really valuable for those of us working in the field to have a direct experience of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this question, I think, hopefully plays on that just a little bit. And you obviously spent the early part of your career in ag, so it's not a completely foreign concept, of course. But I was curious about, your tenure at the other organizations, institutions, were a little bit outside of agriculture. They're clearly inside of development. But I was wondering about, was your appointment as CEO, president and CEO, does that represent a bit of a shift for TechnoServe? I mean, often we have, quote-unquote outsiders come in for big institutions to maybe shake things up a little bit, how they do things. Just wondering how that is playing out, if at all, at TechnoServe with your appointment there.
Yeah, again, I'm so fortunate. In our 47-year history, I'm only the 4th CEO, so I'm very honored and humbled by that. None of my 3 predecessors were agriculture experts, and neither am I. I do want to add that TechnoServe, although we may be known for our work in agriculture, we do an increasing amount of work outside of that space and define our mission of working with enterprising people. We've worked on, give or take, about 35 programs which help entrepreneurs either start new businesses or scale up small businesses, these so-called accelerators, which I think is enormously interesting. And so I think a large part, and certainly a growing part, of TechnoServe's work around the world is with helping people get into productive business relationships that don't have to do with farming. And I think if one looks at the demographic trends in the world, that's only likely to continue to grow. But I don't think at all that me coming into TechnoServe from the outside represents a shakeup. TechnoServe has done a very thoughtful and very strong global strategic plan about 18 months ago. That's available on our website. And I really endorse that plan and look forward to working with the team to implement it. I think that my hope is, as we talked about, that my experience in running large international development organizations, in helping raise money for large international development organizations, coupled with my strong personal belief and experience with the power of business to help drive development, is why I was chosen to lead TechnoServe going forward.
Yeah, not to make you do a job interview or anything, but I was just curious about that. And one of our readers sent in a question, and again, I'm sorry about the video. I know I'm taking back out, but one of our readers from Zambia, working in a Zambian NGO, she had some concerns about farmers, land rights, and big corporations, and TechnoServe is really that glue for a lot of these places, a lot of these organizations that make partnerships possible. And she asked, she has a lot of concerns about land rights and corporations trying to consolidate agricultural ownership. And how big a problem is this for TechnoServe, and what can be done about it?
Great question, and it's lovely to have a question coming in real time from Africa as we have this discussion. It's obviously a really complex issue that we could have a whole hangout about, nothing but that. And even in my early travels in the 4 markets that I went to, I saw very different situations with respect to this. I saw in northern Mozambique a situation where there was a good availability of extra land, and where we were working with farmers who may have been farming a hectare to help them scale up and be able to farm 5 or hopefully 10 hectares eventually. And I saw other situations in Guatemala where land was much tighter, and where people were farming often less than a hectare, even a half a hectare, and where their ability to access additional land was really constrained. I think certainly, as you mentioned, TechnoServe is often playing a role as a bridge between large business and small business people or smallholder farmers. And in that sense, I think we've done some constructive work on this particular issue. Particularly in Mozambique, we've done something around what's called a community consultation model. That's aim is to facilitate collaboration between the community and a foreign investor. The nexus of our work consistently in this respect and others is to find the win-win in these business relationships. We come from the space philosophically where if we can find the business relationship that works for the small business person or the small farmer, so that she can feed her family, rise out of poverty, keep her kids in school, increase her income meaningfully above the poverty line, and we can have at the same time a profitable business for what may be a medium-sized business in the middle of the chain and maybe a multinational up at the top of a chain. Right. That's a solution that's going to sustain. And so I think in that way, some of the work we're doing in Mozambique, that's with USDA support, and in other places is helping. But this is a tough issue. It's an issue that national governments are often quite involved in, or sometimes not involved enough in terms of leading in that respect. So I want to validate the question. I hope that's somewhat responsive to some of the things that TechnoServe is trying to do in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a very difficult position in some cases where there hasn't been great record keeping, and obviously land is passed down from generation to generation.
I mean, Scott, if you don't mind, I would just jump in. I mean, the other interesting thing about that is that to think about, there are some value chains, agricultural value chains, where the smallholder can actually compete with the best in the world on both on quality and therefore on price. I'm thinking of a region in western Ethiopia, the Dormina region, which used to produce some of the world's worst coffee. And TechnoServe started working with small farmers there just a couple of years ago on improved agricultural practices. And I just saw that this coffee from these very small farms is now being served at what is consistently ranked as one of the world's best restaurants, Noma, and it's commanding a 65% price premium on the market. So, I don't mean to say that every smallholder is going to have that opportunity, but I do want to point out that there are certain opportunities in certain value chains where the smallholder can compete with anyone and everyone in the world as well.
That's a great point, and we hear stories about this all the time. We publish blogs that look at how to improve farmer yields, how to improve their efficiency, and how to ultimately improve their livelihood and their wages. It is daunting. I don't need to tell you. I mean, the number that gets thrown out a lot, 70% more production that we're going to need globally by 2050, and that really comes down to efficiency. So I guess building on that point about smallholder value that they provide. And the vital nature of increasing production is the role of the smallholder farmer versus, say, a multinational in bringing these gains up or bringing the yields up as we're going to need to in the next decade.
Yeah, it's another great question and another really complex one, although one that I've already had a good amount of firsthand experience with. I think. I talk about some of the ways we think about this and some of the work we're doing about it. I mentioned earlier, I think that there are opportunities in many places to help smallholders effectively become medium holders. And often that's helping them with mechanization so that they have a means to till a larger land area. And I saw some work that we're doing with that in Ghana, which is on the one hand helping some farmers become owners of tractors, and through that there's another business opportunity there of effectively selling tractor services in their community. That's been very interesting work. And so I think part of the answer here is helping smallholders become medium holders. I think the other thing that often gets missed in this is the potential to fairly dramatically scale up yields for smallholders on the same amount of land with a relatively small amount of inputs of fertilizer and of improved practices. And so I did spend time with people farming maize and people farming soy and hear about dramatic yield increases just through the use of improved practices and some basic better use of inputs. So I think there's opportunities there. I mean, obviously there's about 500 million smallholders in the world who are currently 2 billion people. And so it's a hugely diverse group. Again, I talked about the demographic trends in the world earlier. Some of those people are going to move to cities where there's going to, whether or not there's more jobs in those cities, I think some of those people are going to move there. And so obviously we're working on that end of the equation as well, and we are working with some larger agricultural businesses where there are employment opportunities and where people may have the chance to sell their labor in a way that they didn't before. I'm thinking of a large banana operation that I saw in northern Mozambique, for example. So it's a complicated question. I think it is a mix of all of these things. I think there are possibilities, sustainable possibilities for smallholders to raise their productivity. We've seen that. I think we can help smallholders move to be medium holders, and certainly there will be growth of industrial scale agriculture at the same time.
And obviously, TechnoServe has been at this for a while, and now at the point where you're going to be 50 years old, the company. Excuse me.
I passed that mark a year ago. So.
Okay. In 2018, TechnoServe is going to turn 50, and so you're going to be there at that, obviously, at that crossover point. And what do you see for TechnoServe's mission in the next 5 to 10 years and beyond?
I mentioned that that we have a strategic plan in place that takes us through 2017, and so the two things we're trying to do, the top line things in that strategy over the next 3 years, is to double the impact we're having in the world, and that looks like our reaching 1 million people benefiting directly from our work in a single year, and that looks like $500 million of financial benefit to the farms and businesses and industries that we support over that 5-year strategic plan period. So we are a little obsessive at TechnoServe about measuring our impact, and very much guided and driven by that strategy in trying to hit those ambitious targets by 2017. Looking out beyond that and thinking about where TechnoServe is going, one of the things that many people have noted, and the numbers will stagger you, is the youth bulge going on around the world. It's amazing to know that there are 70 million more people under the age of 14 in Africa than there were just a decade ago. And so increasingly we are looking at programming and how do we work with those youth. We're doing a major project in East Africa right now with rural youth around employment readiness, entrepreneurship. That's supported by the MasterCard Foundation, and is really exciting. It's a very, very hard group to reach, but I think a large one and an important one. I talked earlier about the role of technology, and I think that's another thing that TechnoServe is just going to do more and more of. We're part of something today called the Connected Farmer Alliance, something we do together with Vodafone and USAID that helps farmers get information on their mobile phones, get payment so they don't have to travel for a day just to get paid for their crops. It helps them get extension services and a whole bunch of other things. It links right into what I did in my previous life at Voxiva, and we're doing more and more of that all over the world. I think that's another important trend for TechnoServe in the future. And I think, lastly, we're all concerned about environmental sustainability, but that obviously is having and will have a very direct and immediate effect on those people who farm for a living. And so thinking about how we work with them to adapt to that and how we work with them around some of their practices to make them more environmentally sustainable are some of the themes that I know we're going to be focusing on. Having been here all of 7 or 8 weeks now, I'm sure the next time we sit down I may have some more ideas about where TechnoServe is heading, but that's my early take on things here.
Well, of that I'm sure. And Bill, thank you so much for taking the time and for laying out your head and providing a lot of help behind it.
Real pleasure, Scott. Thank you.
And thanks for everyone for taking part, taking the time out of their day. And we will have the replay of this on NextBillion's.net. And again, I apologize for my audio feedback. Thank you.
Thanks.